a story where you open up the morning paper or you turn on the TV and you see a factory that's closed down, but you see a new factory that's being built. Not a story where your neighbor lost their job, but a story where your neighbor gets a new and better job because of what is being built right here in towns like Toledo. Not communities that are unsafe, where you get mugged or murdered walking down the street, but where every single person, rich or poor, black or white, can enjoy their God-given right to public safety in their own community because we're fighting for law enforcement as opposed to against law enforcement like the last administration. I want the grandmothers, like my grandmother, who are raising grandkids they weren't necessarily planning to raise. I want them to not have to choose between putting food on the table or buying their medicine. That is the future that we're fighting for. And that is what the Democrats in D.C. have fought against every single day of this administration. Now, I don't want to say all Democrats, because my mamaw, the woman who raised me, was one of those blue dog Democrats. She was socially conservative, she was patriotic, but she was a Democrat. And I know that in Toledo, there are a lot of those Democrats still today. But I got to tell you, in Washington, D.C., those Democrats do not exist. They disappeared from Washington, D.C. They care more in Washington about using this country as one big fraud scheme than they do about fighting for your prosperity. And that's why we cannot reward these people come November. What are they actually fighting for? Well, we know what they're fighting against. They hate Donald Trump obsessively, and they talk about it every single day. They want men to play in women's sports, which is crazy. But even aside from it's crazy, why the hell are you talking about that instead of figuring out how to fight for the American people? They want the Somali fraud ring in Minneapolis and frankly in other states too to continue. While a lot of Americans can't afford the cost of child care, they want to take the very programs that we use to make child care more affordable and give them to fraudsters who are illegally in our country to begin with. These are not politicians who care about you. They care about keeping the fraud going. And the question in November is very fundamental. It's going to be, do we reward the people like John Husted, who cut your taxes, who fights for lower housing costs, who fights for lower prescription drug costs? Or do we reward the crazy far-left Democrats who think that America is one big get-rich scheme for fraudsters? That's it. That's simply the question. So I'm asking you, are we going to fight for the people who are fighting for the American dream? Are we going to send a message to the far-left radicals that this country belongs to American citizens, not to illegal aliens? Are we going to fight for the American dream for people like my grandmother and people like your children every single day? So let's remember what we're fighting for this November. It's to have political leadership in this country that fights for the American people, that fights for the American dream. Don't forget it, my friends. Let's work hard. Let's elect these great candidates to higher office, because that's the only way we are going to send a message to the Democrats that this country belongs to Americans and that the American dream belongs to the citizens who built this nation. God bless you, and thank you for having me.